So you're a serial entrepreneur. Where did the entrepreneurial journey start for you?
It all started with a curiosity when I started architecture studies in Liverpool. And when I walked through the cities, my question was, why do we design and build ugly buildings? So that was the really first question. And then following the architecture studies, and I realized, and I had a job actually when I finished my first year. My tutor offered me a work experience at his practice. I was very surprised to see that what he was teaching us versus what he did in the real world is completely different.
How so?
Huge contrast, because the design, there's no architecture meant to be inspiring. We architect, we shape the environment, but in the real world, you can't do anything really. Anything we propose, anything interesting, beautiful, or more sustainable, it always boils down to the cost. The QS say, no, that's too expensive. This is too risky, and the client will follow. So we'll always compromise the design to to the finance, which is. I was very disappointed, and then I thought there must be a way. So when I finished my part one, I had a job opportunity at Foster Partners, where I was introduced this technology called the generative component, and it's a parametric design, generative design tool, and being used by Foster Partners, developed by Bentley Systems in partnership with Foster Partners and KPF. So they use this technology have delivered many landmark buildings. And then I was so inspired. I thought this is the future. Because this could be the technology could be the answer, solving this, the problems of in the AEC industries. So when I finished my part one, I decided to do this, more research for my dissertation in parametric design, computational design, and digital fabrication, which I believe this is the way forward. During my studies, I invented this topic, and my tutor wasn't really happy. Lee, there are 50 topics. Can't you just choose one of them? And I said to him, this is why I believe this is the future. I'd really like to do that. And I didn't get much support. And
what was the topic that you...
computational design, digital fabrication.
Okay.
And so from design engineering to manufacturing. Because at the moment you can see, the architects, when you design something, it's just a vision. How much does it cost? How does the building stand up? We don't know. We speak to the engineer, speak to the QS.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. You don't, apart from vision creation, we're very limited to other expertise. So I thought, we must be, if you look at the traditional role of architecting in Greek in mid-16th century, architects were not only the master of spatial effects, they were closely involved in the construction process, engineering, manufacturing, and assembly, everything. It's a man does all. So, and then it was, the architects meant chief builder, master builder. So that's the idea, but unfortunately it's been shifted away. Architecture is, vision creation and ideas, philosophy, but not very practical in many ways. So that's why we suffer a lot. I mean, architects used to be the leader of the entire process. We're still the lead consultants with a title because something goes wrong, we'll be blamed.
But in terms of the power of how the building gets progressed, what gets included, what gets omitted, that's nowhere near like it used to be.
No way.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about QS, is because it seems as though the QS's role has been elevated over the years. Yeah. And I don't think a QS existed back in ancient Greece.
No.
Architects did.
Yeah. Talk to the architects. He knows everything, or she knows everything.
So that's interesting how that shift has happened. And what you're mentioning there about the architect being more of a visionary and a designer, as opposed to that title of master builder.
Yes. And there's a shift, there was a split during the Renaissance. The architects more like art, philosophy stuff, and the builders, the heavy lifting, the laborers, So that's the kind of, from that point, it just went separate ways. And now you can see in the AEC industry, A&E, architects, engineers, like husband and wife, holding each other's hand, will make it. But the contractor, on the other hand, they come from very different backgrounds, different philosophy, different ideology, and different mindset and different objectives. Everything's different. So there's a huge gap between AE and C. So that's why we have so many problems, especially, when the construction starts. There's so many moving parts, which is out of control. And then that's why when the clients, they're very conscious, worried as well, who we can rely on. The architect produces a drawing package, have absolutely, utterly no clue how much it costs me. We're running a business. It's all about ROIs, right? And the engineer trying to keep up, make sure that the building stands up, nothing goes wrong. The only person they could rely on is the QS, the educated guess, benchmark things, how much per square meter, what's the risk behind that, and then etc. And ultimately, it's the contractor, principal contractor, who will deliver the final products. And this is a process it's so challenging and so many moving parts, and it's beyond control. And then especially in the cost, and that's where we get the problems.
So how then were you looking to address those issues?
So my passion is technology. When I started, when I followed my research, my dissertation in computational design, digital fabrication, I proposed a pavilion. I designed a pavilion meant to be for the London Olympics. And sadly, that wasn't the pavilion idea. It wasn't part of the curriculum for my part 2. So I just didn't give up. I did 2 projects at the end. One's my final project, and the other one was, a pavilion. I wanted to prove the concept. This is the future.
So how did you manage to get involved in designing, creating, building a pavilion for the London Olympics?
That was the question. The challenge they had wasn't just solving design problems. The question was, who's the client? Who's going to build it? Where going to build it? I couldn't answer those questions, especially, that time was 2010 when I finished my part 2. It was in the middle of the recession.
So how did you go from that part then, 2010, in that economic state? I remember that very well. How did you then get to the point of getting someone to agree for you to build a pavilion for the London 2012 Olympics?
Yes, that was I had a full-time job, obviously, and in the practice in London, and I started writing pitch letters to large organizations, and it was very stressful, actually, very, very hard. Literally finished work, you work in architectural practice, you work very late, got home, had some food, beat myself up, some Red Bull, black coffee, and then kept working. Sometimes it's like I was so focused, and my wife woke up in the morning and goes, "What are you doing?" So what do you mean? It's 6:30 in the morning. I just realized I didn't sleep that night. Just that level of focus. I need to make this. I need to make this happen. This is the vision, and it has to be delivered. And my wife was so worried because what if you fail?
Yeah, well, definitely. What if you fail? Definitely about your health as well.
I wanted to take the challenge. There's a sense of urgency. There's a desire to make a difference. I want to design architecture, not just a building. But the challenge is always boils down to cost. How much does a building cost? Nobody could answer it. Architects definitely couldn't, because of the training. The professional training has got nothing to do with costing or building construction, etc. So I believed, this has to be done. Somebody has to do it. It's not going to be easy. So I just, I started pitching this letter after thousands of rejection and failures. Luckily, I managed to convince a range of organizations like Hewlett-Packard, who sponsors 3D printing, Bentley Systems Software, Rumble Engineer, they sponsor the engineering services, and companies, Eco Timber company sponsor the timber, etc. And I had to speak to steel fabricators. A friend of mine, he's a very famous sculptor. He uses steel fabricator in Nottingham. They give me massive discount. I had some saving, and there's a Tensile Fabrics as well, sponsored by Serge Ferrari, and manufactured in Bristol called Tensile Fabric. So I became the principal contractor. Somebody has to build it, and I didn't have a choice. There was no client, there was no principal contractor, there was no project manager. I was everyone except the engineering services, which I couldn't do.
So you decided to set the organization up to be that principal contractor?
Yeah. As a client, many hats: the lead designer, architects, the principal contractor, the client, the project manager, the end user, everything. See, it was quite challenging, because at that time it was paperless construction, design engineering construction, and everything we did, like timber frame, we generated manufacturing code. That drives the robotic arm to cut the timber pieces, and the steel frame, we did the detailed 3D modeling. I had to coordinate with the steel fabricator down to the steel plate. What's the chamfer angle for welding? So when I just issued a solid 3D model to the steel fabricator, we just had volunteers, a student from the first. It was a very complex double curvature structure, and we had no experience. Can't build this. just a bunch of sweaty students, including myself. And we just put these all pieces together. The pavilion, each one consists of 997 unique pieces. If you put in the wrong components in the wrong place or the right component in the wrong orientation, the next one just won't fit. And the accuracy was plus minus 0.05 millimeter. It had to be, we needed this accuracy because, like if each one, imagine 1 millimeter bigger, so 0.5 millimeter on each side, 1,000 pieces later is a meter off. So you can never build this. So this is kind of very challenging. And then, I did discover this as a business model, really. When I spoke to before I built it, I spoke to the QSs, G&T, and they said, how much do you think this pavilion going to cost me? He looked at it, 1 million. I said, what? Where's that 1 million come from? So he looked at me, have you built anything in your life? I said, no. Well, that's your biggest challenge. Make it happen. Money is not a problem. Money is not the most worrying thing you should have, is build it. Yeah, and then what I've done is when I did this project leveraging the technology, automation, robotics, and did all the heavy lifting. It didn't require a skilled worker. It only cost 146,000 pounds instead of 1 million.
Which is a snip, isn't it, on that £1 million that was initially given. So how does that translate then into something that can be used on a day-to-day basis in the construction industry right now? Because I see the gap, I see the architect and the QS and the client, and at times it feels like that they are working against each other, even though they want to work together.
Yeah, they need each other, but they hate each other.
It does feel like that. And I love the analogy that you've made there of the M&E. They're like a married couple. They hold hands and don't worry, we're going to get through this together. That's great. But I don't see that type of union or connection with the other disciplines very frequently. Like so infrequent. How can you take the things that you have learned and the experience that you've had, and then how can that be overlaid as commonplace in the industry?
It's the many issues actually. And then, that was just the very beginning. I thought the notion was just I want to design and build beautiful architecture. Beautiful, the sustainable architecture. That was a dream. But when I started, and I realized we need a software. We can't just use an on-shelf software to build any buildings. You can do that, like for example, BIM, Building Information Modeling. So what he does, he do a 3D model with some intelligence behind that. But ultimately, you export 2D drawing packages and use another third-party software for specification, such as NBS. And then what the contractor wants, just give me the drawing package and the specification. They price the job based on that. So the whole thing is self-defeating, because if you do the 3D BIM, you end up issuing 2D packages. It's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And the root of disaster, in my opinion, is the 2D drawings. There's no data, there's no quantity. So when you give the same package and specification to different building contractors, they come back with different prices. I mean, much different, huge difference. Yeah. So for example, the client I pitched, it's a job, £10 million, an apartment development. And he priced it. He's very experienced. He told me he's been around for 35 years. He said, I don't need a QS. I look at the site. I know how much it cost me roughly. And it's pretty accurate. He knows. He's been there and done that. And the thing is, at £10 million, and when they look at the price, 3 years construction from the beginning to the turnkey, to the completion handover, it's going to be 13.2 million, plus contingency or cock-ups. Everything. And why would he looking for some, contractor? He's willing to commission the job. So a contractor will price it for 8.6 million.
When he knows it's going to cost 30.
Yeah. And I raise the question, why would he do that? So if I give this job to somebody who priced for 11 or 12 million pounds, and I'll end up paying for 15, I'll be in the big trouble, because everybody knows there's a variation. But from the business point of view, if it costs you £1 to produce something, you need to sell at least £1.160 to make a very thin profit margin. Why would you sell it for 75p? It's not sustainable, is it? We always talk about sustainability. How sustainable is the AC industry? I mean, especially the construction business. Think about that. It just doesn't make any sense. But the thing is, the cultures, we establish a culture. People are, in a way, is quite naive. The reason, because I wouldn't say naive. I mean, the action, they want a competitive tender. It's a £13.2 million job, and the bank's willing to give 14.5 million to finish it. And they give they go away, it gives 8.6. It just doesn't make any sense from the business point of view. And what happened is, if the contractors start issuing variation orders, extension of time, which means some more money, because everybody knows nobody can build it for 8.6 million. It's a £30.5 million job. So if they fail to demonstrate, contractors, if they fail to demonstrate that and the client's not willing to pay, the contractors get huge trouble. Then you can see so many contracts go around, want to borrow money because there's a project it's delayed, they need more money for cash flow. All sorts of problems, lots of stress, just not sustainable. We always talk about the mental issues in the construction industry, the people not getting paid. Like, if you see the report, I saw there's a report, industry report, between early 2023 to 24, there were 2,400 construction companies went bust. 2,000 is a lot, actually. Think about that. Why? Because this is the wrong business model. And then, they price something way below the actual delivery price. And they walk into trouble and they can't pay the bills and they go bust. That's the biggest problem. And then we talk about sustainability. We talk about mental health in the construction industries. Have we talked about the people who've gone bust? They're brave enough to start the construction business, and then years later they go bust. They lose their business, destroyed. They lost their family members. Some people got depression or even suicide. Think about that.
How does that cycle get broken?
The vicious circle, that's the thing. So technology, I believed, technology. That's when I started thanks to Brexit. The Brexit happened, and I thought this is a good opportunity because it's all about time frame. When I finished the Pavilion, I was pitching this kind of it wasn't just a pavilion, so the business model workflow. I pitched this idea to many big contractors, including Quintain and Lendlease. They sponsor me the land, in outside the O2 Arena, and they look at it. Yeah, this is very interesting, but no thanks.
Okay.
Because we had a cheap Eastern European labour force, so there was no sense of urgency. But the Brexit happened. Now all the labour force is dramatically reduced, and following that, the pandemic. So now, I think during the pandemic, over 400,000 people left the UK, the Eastern Europeans, and the labour cost is so expensive now in the UK, and especially skilled labour. There's a shortage. So the technology I initially started developing I was in collaboration partnership with Dassault System. This is a French aviation software. It's being used for aerospace, defence, automotive, like jet fighters and nuclear submarines, all the way to the Airbus you travel. So this work in the industry is all the DFMA, Design for Manufacturing Assembly. In a way, you model everything in the real. It's a digital twin, a real digital twin. Not just a 3D geometry, but also that has got metadata, when this parts, who produced this part, where they come from, and all the interface, configuration, everything.
And so how is that different from BIM?
Oh, it's next level. It's DFMA. BIM is, I don't know what it does. People use, BIM has promised so many things: collaboration, integration, and coordination, especially. But people are not using that for the right reasons. And it doesn't work. It's too slow. The software is built on the wrong kernel. It's not powerful enough as well to handle like the camera used. There are thousands of parts. They don't model in that level of detail. Because when you design a camera or anything, like a watch, you procure these parts. You don't price how much per cubic millimeter. Something like, how do you do that? These are the parts. We need Chinese to make it, or the Swiss needs to make it. And then there's a global supply chain. And they'll bring them together, and the assembly in Switzerland, you got this beautiful watch. But building, they don't work like that.
Yeah, I've tried to look at the construction industry through the lens of manufacturing quite a number of times. And I've looked at it through the automotive manufacturing probably the most frequently. And it's interesting that you make a comparison about a watch, lots of different parts coming together. But the thing that I see that's the variation, which is between the construction industry and other manufacturing industries, is that you don't have that mass production at the same specification.
Yeah.
So if you're to reproduce the suit that you've got on, or the tie that you have, or the watch, the production of that, you can do tens of thousands, if not millions of that same, and that will go off on the line.
Yeah.
But you can't do that, or we've not done that. Maybe we should do that in the construction industry.
I'm doing that, actually. Is the techniques being used. So with the DFMA, Design for Manufacturing, I've built this, product library. So we capture knowledge, we understand all the product constraints, and then build the engineering templates. For example, the Waller House is a luxury house in Surrey I designed. We use the Kingspan, the cladding cassette systems. So we build everything in-house. And we design the building envelope, just a surface, and subdivide it. And Anyone like my 5-year-old daughter, when she was 5, click on that. It automates all the panels down to bolts and nuts, bill of materials, how many bolts and nuts and washers, cladding rails, everything. And the panels, automated shop drawings, unfolded panels, all automated, generated. And the template, the engineering template we'll capture is the product constraints. For example, that system, it can't be wider than 1.5, and the maximum height is 3.2. So if you divide this reference geometry bigger than that, it doesn't generate that at all. Do you know why? Because it's important. So when architects design, say cladding systems, they don't know the constraints. They just design. It looks nice.
Yeah.
Every single panel is exactly 5 millimeter bigger than the actual product constraint. And once they tender it, and they realize it's going to be 3 times more expensive because they bespoke. They need to be tested again, even though it's 5 millimeter bigger. But that's bespoke. So that's something we don't know. So that we capture this knowledge, build a template, it prevents people making mistakes. And following that, the cost, we need to know the cost. I did an experiment. I initially sent these elevation drawings to the manufacturer. And said, can you price it for me? And they came back with an estimate, £186,000 plus VAT for this envelope. And then 2 weeks later, I sent this the bill of materials and shop drawings. They look again, 124. And I called the guy. I said, why is it so much cheaper? I'm just curious, And they said, well, because based on your elevation drawing, we only estimate it. We had to price in the risk. What you don't want to hear is, I priced 150, and then 4 months later, when you come back, it's 186 now. You don't want that. So this kind of thing, before the pandemic and the war, obviously, as well, we're having now, all the developers were looking for competitive tender, who's cheaper. And now what they're interested in, certainly, how much does it cost me exactly? So the way we're doing now, when I start, let's go back one step back. When I developed this technology, I pitched to some developers. They were very excited about it. They said, this is the future, man. Oh, by the way, have you ever built anything with this technology yourself? As a principal contractor, I said, I'm not a builder. I'm sorry, I can't be a guinea pig. This is a huge risk. I can see the potential, but you haven't done anything yourself. I can't be the guinea pig, man. So I was so gutted, I said, wow, how do I? It looks like I had to start my own construction business. Otherwise, you can never take Creole from 0 to 1. You can never convince anybody. You haven't done anything yourself. So that's the kind of the idea is, dream big, start small, and lead by example. So I started my construction company and then start building and then using the technology, the philosophy and the workflow. It generates all the building material quantities, anything company manufacture that we develop, like a steel frame systems. So it automates the frame. Obviously, you need to double check with the structural engineer, make sure they're happy with it. Double star or triple star, the diagonal bracing structures. And it automates and generates manufacturing code. So you can send this code to the Huawei machine and give it to all the manufacturers. UK, Ireland, Europe, they give you a quotation. And the rest is about how many bricks it goes in, how many sheets of boards, plaster boards, ply. You have the real cost. So from that moment, I've established open book contract. Now I do construction work for the high net worth individuals. They buy land with the planning, or sometimes have start from scratch. These people have done what they multimillionaires or billionaires. They don't understand the nitty-gritty details of property development, but what they're really good at, numbers, money. They understand that. So when you say variation, what's going up exactly? I can tell them exactly. This is the bill of materials, which is about that we finish the ground floor, and we build the materials for the first floor. But from the 1st of January 2025, we need to build the second and third floor. This is the latest cost. The price is going up. Because that's another problem we have with the principal contractor. The pricing they propose is unrealistic. It's much lower than it's supposed to be. And they need to be very creative, make something up, make something out of nothing to get some money back. And the client understands that as well. But the thing is, this whole thing is so blurred. So, do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. So I've had someone on the podcast from KPMG.
Yeah.
And he was saying that there is no limit to the amount of money that's out there for projects. And he's talking about large infrastructure projects, not buildings. Right. Yeah. But the thing that the clients or the people or the organizations with that significant amount of money, the thing that they struggle with is that the project is going to be delivered on time and it's going to be delivered on budget.
That never happens.
And the reason it doesn't happen, I think, is because of what you're speaking to here.
Yeah.
is the approach.
Yeah.
And there almost seems to be
approach. Yeah.
So yeah, the approach is called a competitive tender, but competitive tender appears to be, to me, at times, let's see how low we can get the fee, even though we know it's going to cost us more than what we're sending out for the fee. And then we can pat ourselves on the back because the client will say it's acceptable when we put in a variation, because variations aren't bad. The bad thing is coming up with the quotation initially to say, this is how much the project is going to cost, even though we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
So to me, it feels a little bit like, you know, the story of the emperor with no clothes on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It feels like that. It's everyone's like, you've got these fine clothes and, you know, you need to be a certain status and a certain level of intelligence in order for you to see it. If you can't see it, then you're not clever enough. But you just need kind of some child in the crowd to say, actually, he's naked.
It's the business model, really, the mindset and the culture, isn't it? Because the culture is, you know, we just need some numbers to start with, and in the end, we know it's going to cost double or triple the price.
So with
I mean, why can't we get this right in the first place? That's what the DFMA approach all about, you know.
So what you're doing here is then you're saying that the software that you've created completely overcomes and deals and solves that problem.
Yeah, that was what we're working on. Yeah, so we developed software and they started construction company just for the sake of the point.
Yeah. You need that credibility for when someone says to you, where does this work in practice?
Have you done it? Have you done it
like
yourself?
Here,
yeah.
here,
yeah.
here, and
exactly,
here.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to be a guinea pig.
Yeah. Previously, I spoke to the clients. They said, "Oh, have you built anything?" No, sorry, I can't be a guinea pig. Now I'm pitching other tier 1 contractors, big consultancy firms. Now the discussion is, this is the project. Oh, I built this. I built that.
Okay.
So
how many projects do you now have under your belt?
The first one. There's a story actually quite interesting. The first one, Fulham Palace Road, near Hammersmith. It's one of my investors. He bought his land with planning permission. We started with lead architects, you know, did a detailed design stage. And then following that, I pitched this, I can build this better using my technology. We did a DFMA design, the 3D modeling using our technology. And then there's a story behind it. It's quite interesting is the site was very tight. And then, you know, the buildings facing the main road, Fulham Palace Road, the previous owner built illegal basements without planning or building control, you know, back in the days. It was a long, long time ago. So we didn't have any data. So we had this piles goes into the ground 12 meters in, just alongside the boundary. So it was my first construction experience as a principal contractor, actually. And I was quite conscious because we did a trial pit, for example. We checked where's the next door's footings, you know, of retaining walls. And it was all good. We did 5 of those. It looks fine. I just had a sleepless night. It was my first project, you know. I didn't want to fail. Because when you run a business, when you say, I don't know, that's a bad sign, isn't it? And that basement in the ground, I don't know where they are exactly. So I pay myself. I commissioned the 3D scanner. I scanned that and everything in 3D, and then measure my proposed foundation footing and piles, capping beams against the internal wall. Guess what I've discovered? There's one of the walls in the back, the internal wall to the boundary center, the boundary fence, 207 millimeter somewhere in the basement, 2 meters down the ground. And I look at it, wow. I had to inform the client, look, this is what I've discovered. We can't do the piling around this area. We had to change the design. So I proposed an extension time and the variation order. We changed the design. Imagine if I just did it anyway. I wouldn't be here by now.
Huge issues.
Well, bankruptcy really, isn't it? My first project, and that was the beginning of the end. You know, people were sued and the next door neighbor punched into their basement.
Which is why that client that you approached initially didn't want to take the risk. Right,
well,
because these are the things that you find out as you go along and start to get involved in projects.
Yeah, technology is different workflow. We didn't rely on the 2D drawing packages, which we had before. One cross section for the party walls as a reference drawing for the technical design detail. But if we did that, I wouldn't be around. You know, I'll be sued by court cases. You know, I wouldn't be here by now.
Talk to me about waste. And about how the software that you have designed and that you have got really deals with the issue of waste to make the industry more sustainable.
Yeah, for example, light gauge steel frame system as a building, you know, the superstructure, that weighs absolutely minimum. So when you make it, the manufacturer drives the machine. That's it. It does that, you know. And for other things, we'll do panelization, internal finishes, how many, cladding systems, bricks, or everything, brick slips. It's just absolutely, this is how many bricks we need exactly. We need a 10% contingency, lost, stolen, or damaged, So you need the tangible figures and facts, which we don't have at the moment, using BIM software or traditional 2D CAD systems. So this is because people come from the finance industry. They look at spreadsheets. They want to know the numbers. They need to know the figures and facts. So nobody can provide this answer at the moment. So that's what I've been working on, really, trying hard. We initially developed a software with Dassault system and realized there's so many constraints, the dependencies on them. What we wanted to achieve didn't quite line with their vision because they come from aerospace defense sector. So, and then I Siemens approached me, had a chat with me. They liked the article we had on the AEC magazines. We started the conversation and realized later on decided to go with the Siemens using their kernel and develop Creola X software. So now what we're doing is we generate all the bill of quantities and open book contract. This is how much it will cost you. Bill of materials. This is our prelims. How many people we need, how long it takes, all the machines, everything. And this is our profit margin, 20% on top. And everything we purchase, we also show the receipt to the clients. This is what we purchased so far. This is what we've done. If it's gone up, you can immediately demonstrate what's gone up exactly because people want to know the numbers. Because these people, our client, they understand you guys running a business, they made themselves millions or billions of pounds because there's a profit. They understand you run a business, you have to make a profit. That's okay. But when the price has gone up, that's where the tricky part is. What's going up exactly? They want to see down to pennies. What's going on? I want to see the facts, which the contractors can't provide because they price everything like a McDonald's Happy Meal, labor and material. They want the profit margin 32% in this package. I don't want to show that. Do you see what I mean? So this is where problems are. If you failed in negotiation, for example, there's a time frame. There's a variation order you issue the client. Got 3 weeks to make a decision, and you pass the deadline. What's going to happen? Extension of time? You're going to charge them more money? This package is only £50,000 package variation, and you have your own QS team trying to make something. Oh, this has gone up, and you pass it to the client. The client, you get their own, QS, experienced QS, all the bodyguards to make sure that interrogate it, and come back. We disagree with that. We need to negotiate. I want you to take some hits as well. It's not just us. You might miss the deadline. This exercise, think about that. Financially, all these people get involved. How much does it cost you? Probably like 20 grand already. So it all adds up in time, stress, more money spent on things like this. How does that make sense? Why can't we just make it more transparent using the right technology? Obviously, we see what's going up. We understand that. Everybody's aware of it. And then we just need to move on, really. Because you as a client, you started a business, you understand that there's a risk. There's no risk-free business. So, yeah. Certainty and transparency. I think that's what we need and we're trying to establish as well, using the technology.
Lee, I think that we're in a position now where we can go to the demolition zone.
Yeah.
We're back into the demolition zone,
yes.
And Lee, you have created this monstrosity of a construction piece of art.
Yes.
So for those people that are listening, it's fairly tall, but it's kind of quite thick at the top end of the tower. What does it represent? Oh, the other thing I forgot is it's got the brown donkey and the stop sign at the top.
The stop sign, yes.
Yeah, I put the little wild cards in that bag of blocks.
Donkey or dodgy or whatever you call that thing. And
but what does it represent?
It represents we need to stop the unsustainable, business model and the practice. As you know, any property developments, the clients start with a very conscious trying to hire appoint any consultant or contractor as cheap as possible to start with, because they need to save their money for the future contingencies. And the contractors are bidding for a job for way below the actual costs. They just don't get their foot in the door, and they want to solve the problems afterwards. Fail to do so, it leads to bankruptcy. And this is the whole thing. I think we always talk about the sustainability. The question for ourselves is how sustainable is our business? We talk about thriving construction, but can we even survive in the construction business? So this is my concern, and the solution is definitely needed, and the change is also needed.
I love that. What is it then that is needed, and how do we overcome this? How is it, before you physically clear up or demolish this myth, how are we going to do that verbally, first of all? What's the answer?
adoption, be open-minded, and leadership, taking more risks to make positive changes in our industry. Have you ever heard this story called "No one gets sacked for buying IBM"?
No, absolutely
So
not.
back in the days, in the 1960s and 70s, IBM was conceived the most reliable computer. So if you're the director or decision maker within the organization and decide to use Hewlett-Packard and Dell, months and years down the line, something will go wrong because it's technology. Something will happen. Something will go wrong. And the problem is, if you didn't buy IBM, something goes wrong. You will get sacked. So this is the kind of mindset is about the risk reversal within the organizations. Yes, there are new techniques, new technology out there, but people are very risk reversal, But this is damaging actually. In the short term, maybe, take no risk, but in the long run, it make,
problematic.
Problematic.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have, now that you've explained it, now I do remember that story coming out, but the safe bet was IBM.
Definitely it was, yeah.
And the reason that people were making those decisions is because they were worried about their job.
Yes.
They weren't worried about doing the right thing.
Exactly.
And they weren't worried about the outcome longer term.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to put their head above the parapet.
The self-interest, and ultimately, it drives out of business.
Yeah. Lee, I love that. Do you want to destroy the myth?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to give it a punch.
Go for it.
Destroy it. With no mercy.
I love that. That is great. Lee, I wonder if you can just delve into some of the things that you think are really important when it comes to setting up your own business. You're an entrepreneur. There are people that listen to this podcast that love the construction industry and that have a desire to set their own business up. What advice would you give them?
It's not easy, first of all. It's challenging. You have to have this mental strength and resilience to deal with the problems, dealing with the people, problems. Starting your own business, you had to deal with up and downs. I've been struggling for a long time, really, because this is based on what I do. I just can't take the normal job. This is design some box with a pitch roof, so-called house. It pays the bills. I want to do better than that. Especially want to make a difference. So that's the biggest challenge, to convince people. So yeah, I think, just be strong, keep head down and then dream big, start small, lead by example. And if you're architects, don't talk, build. That's what Ms. Van der Rohe's famous quote. You need to build. You really need to build. You can't just talk about the ideas and visions. You need to build, have a practical experience, hands-on experience, and prove yourself. The architectural design vision, sustainability, and the financial viability. These three things are quite important, critical.
What about your support network? What have you found to be useful in terms of running your own organization or setting something up with access to the human resources around you that aren't working for you, but that do work with you?
Yeah, I got a very good team, obviously. The key success is a good team, people around you, who you know. It's very important, winning the project to the good consulting team, who can help you make it happen, give you good professional advice, make it more professional, make it more financially viable. That's one of the keys, my key challenge, Can we make it cheaper? Can we make it better? Can we make it more sustainable? So yeah, this is the key factor for us, the people around us, but also the technology we are developing and the software. Because we started independent software and we're going to launch it, the full beta version next year. So this is the technology we developed. We give away the library so you can do a few clicks, it generates all the outcomes. So just de-risk the whole thing, make it, helping, empower the architects so they can focus on their vision, but in the same time have this, the system in place, helping them. They can present the design ideas at the same time, the cost. I think this is and the new business model workflow, and then I think this is the game-changing process. Yeah,
I like that. What lessons have you taken from professional swimming that now are really, really vital in the role that you've got at the moment in leading an organization?
The mental strength.
Yeah.
I think that's when you run your own business. Yeah, so many things could happen. Just you need to be strong. Really, that's if you fail or give up, failure happens. But the thing is, if you give up, that's the beginning of the end. So you need to keep going, put head down. Sail against the wind was the Churchill's quote, something like that. And just keep going. Believe in yourself and build a team. Good people supporting people, your partners, your families and friends, and then colleagues. Is very important. People around you is the key to success.
Lee, it's been great having you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks for watching to the end. Please remember to like, to share, and to subscribe. Also, I think you'll really like this one.